I'll tell you, there's one thing that all of us could probably do very easily after getting out of these relationships, and that is slip our toe and fall right into complete bitterness. Today, we're going to talk about how to avoid bitterness when you are coming out of a narcissistic relationship, because it is the easiest thing to possibly do, especially if you have been discarded. If you have been treated unfairly, if you are now at the stage where you're really angry and really upset and really frustrated by maybe you overlooking red flags, wasting time, the way this person treated you, I mean, really the list can go on and on. You are in the right spot, because I have been there and I know what it's like to have every right in the world to be angry and bitter for the rest of my life. But the one thing that I told myself for a very long time, and I tell majority of my clients that I talk to, is you staying angry for a long period of time is that person controlling you. So that means they still have power over you. They're still controlling your life. They're still controlling how you feel. And if you really want to move on, or if you're just coming from your own ego as well, that's not something that you want to do. Bitterness can feel like a really heavy burden that you're carrying, especially when you've been in a relationship and it's taken so much out of you. But it's important to remember that you actually have the ability to not become angry and bitter and let this ruin you, because what we don't want to do is be in a situation or having gone through an experience and it ruins the rest of our lives, or it makes us put up walls, unhealthy walls. So if you know that you're tiptoeing with probably being angry for a little too long, now if you're day one, then you might want to watch this just as to give yourself a little forecast of what's to come, but chances are you have every right to feel what you're feeling right now. But I'm talking to the person that if they're very honest with themselves, there's that little voice inside that's going, I think we've been doing this for a little too long and I don't really want to be here anymore, but I'm kind of addicted to being here. When you're stuck in a lot of bitterness, remember too, you're actually just avoiding healing, because anger and bitterness is just a mask for grief and sadness. You might want to go back and listen to that again, because that's actually a really powerful thing, and it's something that really helped me, and it helps a lot of people, is to understand that what I'm going through and how I'm feeling, while it's normal and I have to feel it, I have to experience this level of pain, it is a mask for what I'm really just denying myself, which is I'm hurt, I'm disappointed, I'm sad, and I'm frustrated with those feelings, or maybe I don't even know how to really express those feelings, and instead I just go to anger and bitterness. Bitterness also comes from not feeling confident or empowered to be able to move yourself forward. You might be angry and bitter because you're in a place where maybe you didn't ask for it and someone kind of like put you there. And now that you are here, you have to do something that you probably wouldn't have done had they not done what they did. So yes, we can blame that person all day long that, okay, you put me here, but at the end of the day, it does take two to tango. So I have to, just like you, have to kind of own my contributions to getting myself here. Here we go with overlooking red flags, not having a good sense of self, not having confidence, not having a high standard of how people should treat me and the people in my life. Because if all those things were in my favor, then I probably wouldn't have been in this relationship to begin with, and neither would you have. When we're feeling things like sadness or grief, maybe you're like, okay, Steph, look, I felt that before, but then I go straight to like anger and bitterness, and that's totally fine. But you want to understand, when you're in anger and bitterness, what is the struggle? Is it an addiction to do this? Do you feel like you're the victim because that person put you there? And so there's two parts to that. Do I have to own my contributions to me getting here, which that stinks? And we don't want to judge ourselves or blame ourselves or make ourselves feel bad, but we have to raise our hand and say, well, I did play a part in this. I picked this person. So that's something that we kind of have to deal with, and we have to then forgive ourselves. We also then have to forgive a person who is unhealthy and they did what they did because they're not well. And so I have to understand that and then forgive that person. Then I have to work on my inner self to feel confident to be able to overcome this hurdle that I'm in right now. Maybe you were in a relationship and now you're single and you're like, well, I didn't want to be single. And it's like, okay, well, you're here and I have to accept this. And then I have to feel confident enough in myself to be able to go back out into the world and create something that I want for myself. So if we're stuck in anger and bitterness, we're not doing any of that inner work. And that's really the healing stuff. That's where if you have to go through something, you want to change core things about yourself. You actually do want to heal. You do want to grow. And the only way you can heal and grow is when you do really intense levels of self-reflection where you can reflect on all of those things and look at the situation differently and do something differently and work on your inner self so you can feel confident to go back out there in the world. And it takes work. It takes a lot of work in order to be able to do that. With this level of work, I don't want you to feel so defeated just because I said it's a lot of work. Well, guess what? It's a lot of work for anything in life. And it doesn't matter if it's mom and dad that programmed you in the wrong way, or if it's your ex-wife or ex-husband who did something really horrible to you and now you feel this wall coming up and you don't want to trust other people. There's a million things that happen to us that can change us for the worst, or we can actually learn, because all of these experiences are helping us to grow. I know that's not something that you want to hear, but sometimes you really do need that quick, slap just to say, okay, I have to own this. Like, okay, I am angry with this person, and yes, I have every right to be, but how long am I going to play that card? Where do I feel weak? Where do I feel insecure? Where I'm fearful about doing this again or rebuilding my life? Like, what do I really need to work on within myself? What do I just need to let go of? Where do I need to forgive that person or possibly even forgive myself? Self-compassion is really, really at the top here, at the forefront of really healing and even being able, because look, if you're not healing, then you're not growing. And if you're not growing, then you're not healing. I mean, they're all kind of like intertwined with each other. And self-compassion absolutely needs to happen, because first off, you're not going to go from, oh my God, I'm not angry and bitter anymore because she said all of these things. Nope. In about 10 minutes after this is all over, you're going to go do something, and all of a sudden the same story is going to want to come back up. That's the work, is the repetition of doing something different than you've done before. And you have to be compassionate with yourself, because you're human and you're not going to do it right every single time. Healing does take a while, and it does take a while to rebuild, and it does take some time in order to reprogram yourself and to not just go into those old habits that you've been doing for a really long time. One of the most debilitating stories that bitterness tells us is that what we lost was absolutely amazing. We focus so much on what we lost, and that it was, and this is really the messed up part of this kind of story that lives in our mind, is we focus on what we lost as if it was going to be different than it probably would have been. Like, we're still living in the fantasy and the projection that we had on that person in that relationship. I mean, talk about dysfunction within our own selves. You know how many times I've said to a person, do you realize that what you actually wanted, even if you would have stayed with that person, would have never happened? And like, they have to own that. They accept it because they know it is the truth, but they haven't still fully owned the fact that they were in a relationship that wasn't the relationship they wanted to be in, and that they were living in a fantasy. And people get stuck there for years and years, and that's what contributes a lot to their bitterness. They're just focusing on their loss, or what it is that they lost, which is all just a projection, a fantasy. It's not even real. They focus so much on that instead of what they actually gained. They don't realize that, okay, now I get to actually start over. Look, I actually get to find the person that I really do want, instead of living in a relationship or a fantasy or projection. And I mean, think about it, living in a fantasy of what you actually want, and that's not happening. I mean, we're not little kids anymore where we're playing make-believe. We have to face realities that this person is not the person that we wanted them to be. That can absolutely cause you to grieve, and you can and you must, but you also have to just accept at the end of the day. Instead of dwelling on the past, we have to start being able to work on ourselves so we can create new opportunities. We can't deny that there are just some things that we go through in life, whether we asked for them or not, whether we contributed 100% to them or not. There are just things that happen to us that are out of our control that really do shape who we are. And we have to be able to decide whether it's shaping us for the good or the bad. This relationship has caused you to really work on yourself in this way, where you're doing a lot of self-reflection, where you're actually asking yourself those questions now. And you're really owning yourself in so many ways that you have never ever done before. A lot of the good things that we do learn in life, majority of them sometimes come from painful situations. So recognize that those experiences absolutely did shape you, but they don't define you. They don't define who you are now. When you have self-awareness, you actually get to consciously decide how you want those experiences to shape you. Do you want them to shape you for good or bad? And when you decide, I want to learn something from this, I want to grow from this, then you'll only take the beautiful lessons that this pain is giving you and make something good with it rather than making something bad with it. Remember, you have the power to create the life that you actually want. And I know that's really hard when you're going through this. So remember, if you were day one of grief, if you were a day one of a breakup or divorce, by all means, save this video, save later, like keep watching it throughout your entire journey, because you will need this at some point where it really starts to hit home. But if you know you're the person that, yes, I'm still angry and sad and bitter, remember a couple of things. One is that this is a process. There are going to be days where you feel very strong and very capable and you are owning it all and you were really starting to move forward. And then all of a sudden grief will hit and it'll kind of take you back. I don't want to say it takes you back 2 steps, because it's not taking you back. You just think it's taking you back because you're feeling sad instead of feeling excited and empowered. But it's all part of the journey in order to get you to move forward. And so allow it to all happen. So please, if you did like this, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And I hope that you are well. I hope you are going through this journey as best as you possibly can. And I know you're doing the best job you can, because this stuff's not easy. Believe me. I hope you are well, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.